Hello, you are now entering the infinite void. Hang on tight. We cannot save you now.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode. I'm your co-host Jacob.
And I'm your co-host Matty, and this week's episode is on the 2020 Mars missions. So, just to make sure no one's confused, we're going to be talking about the 3 Mars missions which launched in 2020 and have, when this is released, sort of just arrived in the last few weeks. So, the NASA Perseverance mission, the United Arab Emirates Hope mission, and the Chinese Tianwen 1 mission.
I'm glad you. Yeah, I'm glad you introduced those because I was nervous you were going to look at me. Then I was like, well, I only knew Perseverance, so that helps. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fun episode. We were kind of like smack bang in the middle of doing our AI series when everything for NASA kind of was going down. So I think we touched on it in some of the news segments, but it'll be fun today to kind of like go in and look at what these rovers and orbiters and stuff are actually doing, because I think it's cool knowing that we've like sent it to Mars, but some of the stuff that's actually on it and what they plan on like doing with it is actually quite interesting. So I think our listeners and people watching will enjoy that today.
Yeah, well, the 3 missions all got there within about the space of a week, didn't they? Because with the Mars missions, there's only certain like windows where you can launch for it to be favourable with like the positions of the planets and things like that. So they all launched back in, I think, July 2020, and it's taken about 7 months to get there. So they all arrived within a few days of each other. So as you said, it was during our AI series. So I think we just sort of said they've arrived and left it at that. So it'd be good to go back and have a look at some of the missions, I guess, of them arriving, and then looking forward at what science they're going to be doing. So yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah, and I think we should probably start with the most recent one in relative to us recording this, which is the NASA Perseverance rover. But I think by now anybody that has been listening, if they don't know how hyped we are about this, then I don't know where they've been, because I don't think me and you have shut up about this like little helicopter drone, have we?
No, love it.
That's attached to it. But yeah, so the Perseverance rover was really built to go to Mars and try and find signs of ancient microbial life.
Yeah.
And I can't... I'm already butchering this episode. I can't remember what crater they landed it in.
Zero, I've got that.
There you go. Yeah, so it's cool. It's cool because from what I saw, they kind of think, don't they, that it was like a river or a lake that burst its bank, and that's where they've kind of landed it in that area, haven't they? Because they want to like check those sediments and stuff, because they think that's where, if there is any evidence, it would be.
I think they're also hoping that there might be some decent amount of sort of subsurface water, like frozen as ice. So that's obviously good for the sort of looking for life aspect of things and trying to understand Mars's history and Mars's geology. But I think there's also not a massive amount, but certainly foundation works at looking at being able to sort of extract that water and use it for stuff.
Yeah,
and it's got plans and experiments to sort of look at some of those resources that perhaps we could use for water and rocket fuel in the future. So it's I think it's quite an interesting one, this, because obviously Curiosity is fantastic and has done a lot of the sort of groundwork in terms of trying to find these biological signatures and stuff. And Perseverance is cool because it builds on a lot of that and takes it to a next level, and does a lot of the similar things but in a more interesting place. But then it sort of lays the backbone and the foundations for then the next mission, which will hopefully be a sort of manned mission or looking to establish a base on Mars. So I think it's really cool, and it's both sort of built on what's already there and lays the foundations for the next mission. So yeah,
no, I'd agree with you. Did you see that they had that like little engraving? I think it was a sticker on Perseverance, which showed its like evolutionary scale up, which is really cool. But yeah, no, I think it's really cool, and not even just like the rover itself. It's cool how like watching them with Curiosity and with Perseverance, how they like actually landed it on Mars too. Because wasn't Curiosity, it had, from what, because I can't really remember because I think I was quite young, but didn't it have loads of they had loads of like inflatables around it, didn't they? And they bounced it.
Yeah, so Curiosity I think landed using, I'm sure it had a sky crane, because the sky crane's definitely been used before, but then it also had these big inflatable balls on it that it used. So, but yeah, the actual sort of landing of Perseverance was awesome, and I know you watched it, didn't you, with the sky crane lowering it down?
Yeah,
it's just amazing.
Do you think they didn't do like the inflatables this time just because like algorithms and autopilot and all that kind of stuff, it's just so much better and with so much more precision that they probably were able to have the sky crane kind of bring it in at the speed that they wanted it to and lower it at the speed they needed it to and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think sort of confidence in it, and they've refined it. They probably, carrying those inflatables and things, obviously there's fuel and cost involved with that, and every kilogram of that you're carrying is a kilogram of science that you're not carrying. So probably just they had restrictions, and they felt that they were happy enough with the sky crane to rely on it. So
yeah, no, it's going to be cool because Perseverance is basically, it's going to be like drilling into the ground, isn't it, and collecting like little samples and tubes and then like leaving them sealed ready for future missions, isn't it?
Yep. So I think they plan to try and retrieve them by 2030.
Yeah.
So presumably that will be manned missions that go and get them and bring them back, which I think makes a lot of sense, because you can do a lot of science on Mars, and Perseverance has a lot of instruments and stuff built into it, but there is so much that you can do outside of a lab, and we don't really have to launch a rover like that, and then also something that could collect those samples and bring it back automated would be quite difficult. But yeah, they by sort of trying to combine it with the manned missions, it gives those a purpose, I guess. The later manned missions, because obviously the first two are going to be big, like, oh, we've landed on Mars, but after that, NASA has budgets and things. There's going to be questions of like, oh, are we just going back to stick another flag in Mars, sort of thing. But if they can go and retrieve samples, I think that gives them a bit of leverage in terms of what they can do. So
yeah. And it's something to like work towards as well, isn't it? Because they're ready for us now. Because you could just make an argument that you could have waited until the manned missions to get the samples in the first place. But it's cool, like having the robot do it and like setting like a point of view to like work towards. Yeah. But it just seems really cool. I like how they're doing it. Like we've said, they're gonna have the sealed tubes to like wait for future human missions, and then we've got the is it a drone or is it a helicopter? Because I've seen both.
From what I've seen, I think they're officially calling it the Ingenuity helicopter. Right. But I think to be honest, it's more like a drone, but they seem to go with helicopter.
And then the first couple of like test flights, it's just going to be up, down, and then up, and then staying there for a little bit and then back down, isn't it?
Yeah, so they've got, I think I said in last week's news, they plan to do 5 flights with it, initially sort of just basically hovering. And none of the flights are going to be amazing sort of things. So it says, what I'm looking at here, each flight's going to be no more than 90 seconds at heights of 3 to 5 meters, and then moving maybe 50 meters away. So we're not talking about massive sweeping aerial shots of Mars or anything, but it's really cool. And I saw a thing about it is that I mean it's obvious when you think about it, but the difficulty with sort of a drone and a helicopter is that it relies on the air for propulsion, and Mars's atmosphere is just a lot thinner.
Yeah.
So, what you can do on Earth, I don't know the exact sort of statistics and sort of how thick Mars's atmosphere is off the top of my head, but what is 3 or 5 meters on Earth is obviously 1 atmosphere of pressure. 3 or 5 meters on Mars could be the equivalent of trying to fly your little drone at 20,000 feet or something, just with the drop in air pressure. So, and that's why these flights are going to be so small, because you have to keep the weight very low, because you can't create as much lift, which then limits your sort of battery capacity. So, but yeah, it'd be the first sort of powered flight on another planet, and I hopefully in the future they sort of work on it more, and we get some nicer photos.
It would be cool to get some photos of Mars like up in the air, and not like ones just as it's landing, or because like the footage from the sky crane was insane, and those images and stuff where it's like dropping it off. Because I think we were talking about this, weren't we? Like, you're watching it and you don't know. Like, I thought we were really close to the ground, like really far away at first. Like, the sand looked like they were like giant sand mountains kind of thing. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, no, we're on the ground kind of thing.
Yeah, you couldn't tell whether you were 10 meters up or 10 kilometers up. So.
Yeah. But I've got here that it has 4 scientific objectives aboard the Perseverance rover, and the first one is looking for a habitat, so identifying past environments capable of supporting microbial life. It's got seeking biosignatures, so seeking signs of possible past microbial life in those habitats, environments, particular in special rocks known to preserve signs of life over time. Caching samples, so to collect core rock and soil samples and store them for future Mars missions on the Martian surface, and then preparing for humans to test oxygen production from the Martian atmosphere.
Yeah, so those first 2 are obviously the biological ones, and that builds on the work of Curiosity, and then those last 2 are sort of looking at the future missions and what humans are capable of doing on Mars, which I think's awesome. Because at the moment, are we still on for 2026? Is that the plan?
I'm not actually sure, because I think NASA might. I think I saw something where the Biden administration doesn't want to give the entire amount of funding to NASA for the Artemis missions. So I'm not seen that, but I'm not sure if it's getting delayed, because I saw something. I think the whole Artemis missions is going to cost like 27 billion or something. But I'm not sure if that's actually happening, but it was all over Twitter a couple of days ago, so hopefully that date still counts. But I can imagine if it loses funding, then it might be pushed back a little bit, unless the private companies step up, because you have got Blue Origin and SpaceX, haven't you, that are in partnership, and the Dynamics one.
Yeah, but in any case, whether it's 2026 or pushed back a few years, this is probably going to be the last major thing that America sort of sends to Mars before preparing for those missions. So I think it is important that they start thinking about this and looking at some of these things before we get there eventually. Because, as I said, and like you've just alluded to, NASA does have budget constraints. And I think the sort of risk is that we sort of send one mission and it goes, well, we've landed on Mars, and then we send. It's the same with Apollo, really. You send 5 or 6, and then suddenly people start to lose interest. And what are we doing apart from just sending people there to go for a few days and collect some samples, and then come back? So this sort of looking at oxygen production will hopefully allow us to create a more permanent settlement and really get some more long-term Mars activity out of it.
Yeah, I bet it must be fun if you're in the field of astrobiology right now. It's booming. I bet it's well exciting.
Oh yeah, like so hopefully some of these samples and things, and I think they are genuinely quite positive that they might find something. So, which is crazy, really, because it's not that long ago. Like, even when I was growing up, before, what year did Curiosity launch in? I can't remember off the top of my head, but when I was growing up, the idea of life on another planet was still sort of science fiction, and nobody really took it seriously. But
yeah, no, it is interesting. I'd agree with you. When I grew up like watching quite a lot of like silly sci-fi stuff, so to me it was always like, in my active imagination, I was like, yeah, of course that kind of stuff exists. But then everyone else was going to be like, no, think about it for a minute. They haven't proven it. And I'd be like, oh, okay, brought back down to kind of like face reality. But yeah, it's cool to see like stuff happening now, because I just bet it's such a fun field to be in at the moment, because you had all the stuff with Venus last year, and now we've got all these things going to Mars, and you've got those 2 other ones that bumped those asteroids and got samples. It's just, but it's well exciting.
Oh yeah, there's loads of new technology and stuff that's being worked on, and I think it's pretty awesome. And I've just sort of found some more information on the oxygen stuff, which probably is my personal interest, because I think it's really cool. So it's called the Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment, catchy, called MOXIE for short.
Nice.
So what they're going to try and do is, I thought they were trying to use water, but they're actually going to be using the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Cool.
Using electrolysis. And it says here that they're planning to. This is sort of an experimental version of it, and they hope to fly a sort of larger version of it on some later missions to basically try and use this thing in an actual mission. So the one that they're looking at will be about 200 times larger than what's on Perseverance.
Oh, nice. Jeez.
Yeah. And would include a power plant capable of generating 25 to 30 kilowatts, which is quite a lot of power for a power plant on other planets. And over the course of approximately 1 Earth year, this system will produce at least 2 kilograms of oxygen per hour in support of a human mission sometime in the 2030s.
Nice. That's not bad.
Don't know how much oxygen a person uses in an hour, but 2 kilograms sounds like plenty.
I've been playing like loads of like Xbox games on the Game Pass this like last week, because we've like set up the Xbox again in the living room, and I had to tell you about this, mate, because you think it was pretty cool. I've been playing these 2 games. You've got one called Mars Missions, and then another one called Deliver Us to the Moon. But the Mars one's so cool. You like get there and you just have to build a base. And you have to have your solar panels, and like like those mobile games where you have to kind of like keep it all going. It's like that, but it's like proper good, because it's like an Xbox game on Mars. So I've been playing that, and then another one which is really cool, but I haven't got very far on it yet. So if anybody has played that, let me know. But it's about this idea that all of the Earth's ran out of energy, and there's a thing called the WSA, so it's the World Space Agency, and it's literally just the European Space Agency logo, but with a W. And they basically go to the moon and do something with helium-3 to produce a load of energy, and then they like beam it back to Earth on a giant satellite. But something goes wrong and there's a storm, and because it like cuts off the satellite, they don't actually have enough power to like start it back up so they can get the grid back going, so that the satellite can point at it to get the power grid going again. So they just like descend into chaos, and it's like apocalypse. And everybody stopped believing in science, and they think it's like magic, and they think it's ruined the planet and all this kind of stuff. And there's like these 6 scientists that are like, no, we could do this, because obviously there's still the colony on the moon, and they use the last bit of energy to like launch you to the moon, and you need to figure out why it's not working. You're like the last engineer. and I've just got to the moon, and I'm like well engrossed in it. I just sit there for like hours, walking around with my flashlight, like reading everything and stuff. It's class. It's so cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But should we move over to the Emirates Mars one, the Hope mission?
I'm going to be relying on you for a bit. This is one that I know least about. So.
Cool. I did a little bit, so hopefully what I'm bringing to the table is considered a decent amount of knowledge and research. But the Emirates Mars mission is the United Arab Emirates Space Agency uncrewed space exploration mission to Mars. That was a mouthful. It consists of the Hope orbiter, which was launched on the 19th of July 2020, and it reached Mars in last month. I think it was February the 9th, 2021. The mission is designed and developed and operated from the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, or MBRSC for short. The spacecraft was developed by them and a laboratory for atmospheric and space physics, the LASP, at the University of Colorado Boulder, with support from the Arizona State University, ASU, and the University of California, Berkeley, and it was assembled at the University of Colorado. Lots of universities.
All very United Arab Emirates there.
And then the space probe will study daily and seasonal weather cycles, weather events in lower atmospheres such as dust storms, and how weather varies in different regions on the planet. It will also add to our knowledge about Mars, atmospheric hydrogen and oxygen losses, and other possible reasons behind the planet's drastic climate changes. The mission is being carried out by a team of Emirate engineers in collaboration with foreign research institutions, and is a contribution towards a knowledge-based economy in the UAE. But it's cool. Did you watch any of the stream or anything for this one?
I didn't watch this one. I did look back at some of the videos and stuff, but not at the time. I didn't watch it. No.
I watched a little bit of it, and it was pretty crazy. I was trying to think for ages what it reminded me of, but I don't actually remember the name of the show. But do you remember when Neil deGrasse Tyson, is it Cosmos? Is it when he did Cosmos? You know, when he gets in his spaceship and stuff, and he's like flying around, and he's on the planets and stuff.
Yeah.
That CGI. They had that kind of CGI in it. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, I saw that. It was all very, very slick, very Dubai.
Yeah. She was like walking around on Mars, then like there'd be like a hologram rocket next to her and stuff. It was very cool. But I liked their like little like setup they had. It's like you're saying, it was very slick. They had loads of fancy lighting in all the offices and everything, didn't they? It looked very futuristic.
Yeah. Well, I think the most impressive thing about this is that, you know, I obviously have an interest in space and can talk about the European systems and the American systems and some of the Chinese systems, but really had no understanding of what UAE was even doing or what they were like, what point they were at. And I was like, oh, maybe that's just me being sort of bad and not sort of taking notice of it, because, you know, admittedly I don't know much about like India's space program, for example. And I was looking into it, and actually it was only founded in 2014.
Yeah.
The UAE had launched a few sort of commercial satellites that had been constructed with partners and a few sort of CubeSats, but it was only founded 5 years ago, and this is their first proper mission. They've managed to get something around Mars.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's like actually really impressive that they managed to do it. And of course, lots of oil money available on this stuff, but yeah, it was pretty cool. And I think, to be honest, if we're being honest, there's not that much the UAE has really done in this mission. I think the centre only employs about 70 people, and like you were saying, with the number of like university links and stuff, this is very much
it's an international thing, isn't it?
Multinational thing rather than a UAE satellite. But even so, it's pretty it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you. I think it's very cool, and it's cool as well to see that like all these institutes and like countries doing all this at the same time, because it's like you're saying, there's certain times that you can send stuff to Mars, and it was just very cool to see that it was more than one country that had something ready to send this time. When like the window opened, it was kind of like, right, we're all sending our things, and there was like 3 things going at once, which I think is very cool. But just got a little bit more on this. So Hope was the first of 3 space missions sent towards Mars during July 2020. The missions also had the China Tian 1, which we're going to discuss, and the Perseverance rover, which we have discussed. But the spacecraft was launched from the Space Center in Japan with a Japanese rocket, the Mitsubishi Heavy Industry H- I'm going to say 11A. I don't know if that's my typo or if it's an II, but I've got a 11 here. Launch vehicle, and all 3 arrived on Mars in February 2021. It's currently in a successful orbit maneuver, and it is the first Arab country and the 5th country in the world to reach Mars. And the 2nd country to have a successful Mars orbit in its first try, India being the first successful orbit. So that's pretty cool. So,
yeah, it is pretty cool, and compared to, we spoke about the Perseverance one, and we'll come on to China's in a bit. You can tell it's definitely a more prototypey early door sorts of thing. So looking at the instruments, obviously the NASA one has this rover with a helicopter which has like 19 cameras and all this sorts of thing. So the instruments on this, they've got a camera, an infrared spectrometer, and an ultraviolet spectrometer. So really 3 different types of cameras with some instruments on it. But it's pretty cool. And yeah, hopefully in the future they do more of this. And I was looking at some of the other missions that they got planned. They've got one for a lunar mission, hopefully in 2024. So they seem keen to build on this in the future.
No, yeah, I'd agree with you. It's cool. It's cool that you've got the NASA one that's like search for life, and then you've got the UAE one, which is like doing weather and atmospheric stuff. But I see, this is now the one that I don't know. I don't know much about the China one, so you're gonna have to come through at the end. But yeah, it's just cool. It's nice to see that we're doing different things as well. Hopefully we kind of like share this information with each other. I wonder how much international collaboration there will be.
Yeah. I mean, this is good. It's a new sort of person, sort of new country on the in the game, and obviously willing and keen to work with other countries and other organisations, and a combination of universities and commercial groups as well. So, which is sort of, as we're seeing in America, is probably the way to go, and how things are sort of evolving. So, yeah, I think it's all looking good, and I don't have much more to add, to be honest.
No, that's fair. Should we move over to the China one?
So the Chinese, the third and final one that we'll talk about is the Chinese Tianwen 1. So this was an orbiter and also has a rover on it. So very cool in that sense. Much more akin to the NASA Perseverance mission. So they're going to be the 3rd country to, if they can do it, the 2nd country to deploy a rover, and the 3rd to achieve a soft landing on Mars after the US and the Soviet Union. So sort of big things planned for this. Their rover is going to be a more short-lived one, and it being their first, obviously you would expect it to be more of a prototype. So their rover's going to hopefully be on the surface for 90 Martian days, but there is a possibility they'll extend that. And this one launched on the 23rd of July 2020, so in the middle of the other two, and entered orbit on the 10th of February. This one is probably the most interesting one for me, because obviously NASA's Perseverance is amazing and it's going to do cool stuff, but to actually get a rover down from a new country who's going to be doing some science with it is I think, really cool.
Yeah, no, it is. It's very cool. Imagine if they just all landed in the crater and then it was like Robot Wars. I used to love Robot Wars when I was a kid. You just have like the three governments standing there with their remote controls and just driving Perseverance into each other and stuff.
But yeah, you could definitely tell it's sort of an earlier mission, because it's using parachutes to land rather than a sky crane, and so it's only going to be there for 90 Martian days.
It's a lot smaller as well, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's quite a bit smaller. If I can just get the Perseverance one open again, I've forgotten the numbers for that. Oh no, I've lost the numbers for Perseverance.
Disaster.
Yeah, so the mass of Perseverance is just over a ton, just over 1,000 kilograms, whereas the Chinese rover is about 240 kilograms, so quite a bit smaller.
Yeah.
And sorry.
No. I was gonna just say it's mad how big the Perseverance and Curiosity rovers were. Like when you see the diagrams and stuff, I don't think a lot of people realize like how big they are. They're like massive. They're like 4x4 cars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're pretty huge. They're pretty large things. But yeah, this one's quite a bit smaller, but it does still have some interesting things. And I can't remember the first NASA rover on Mars. Very much details about it, to be honest. But this rover is going to have a ground penetration radar that can go down to about 100 meters below the surface, magnetic field detectors. It's going to be doing some meteorology, surface compound detectors, cameras, and a topography camera. So, yeah, hopefully some more pictures again. Some nice new pictures. But yeah, they're going to be doing some subsurface mapping and things as well. So,
that's really cool. I feel like all three missions together, there's a lot of great things we can learn about Mars.
Yeah.
Like down below, up above, and on the surface.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, actually, the this Taiwan one is going to hopefully land relatively near Perseverance, so Robot Wars. Not...
it would be funny. I think it's is it Space Force? I think it's Space Force on Netflix with Steve Carell when the Americans and the Chinese are both on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
But guns are illegal, aren't they? But they've just got wrenches and they're just hopping to each other's bases and they just start like smashing everything with wrenches.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed that show. I know it got quite a lot of hate online, didn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people hate it. I thought it was pretty funny, to be honest. So.
Yeah, I thought it was right. I was kind of expecting a more of like an American Office in space kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's kind of the route they were going to go. Like it'd be on like a international space station for Space Force or something, and it would just be him like trying to run it but badly. But no, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good, and it kind of like, yeah, I just thought it was funny, to be fair.
I thought it was decent.
I liked when they were like messing around with that monkey and stuff and trying to get him to like fix the satellite. It's just crazy. Yeah, should we move on to some news, because there's been a lot happening this week, hasn't there?
Yeah, we can do that.
I was going to say, actually, I'll kick this off because I have just seen this like right now as I was loading this up, so that's pretty cool. Don't know if people have seen or saw on the news, but in the United Kingdom there was a meteorite that flew over. I think it was it 2 days ago?
I lose track of days. I don't.
Okay. I think it was 2 days ago, and it made it. I don't know if it made a sonic boom, but it was quite loud. It made a bang, and it shattered some windows somewhere in South England. But according to the BBC, literally 10 minutes ago, apparently it's they think fragments of the meteorite are somewhere near Cheltenham, but they haven't located them yet, and that's pretty close to where me and you live.
Yeah, that's in easy driving distance.
Yeah. I'm gonna go and pick them up and get crazy radiation powers. Can you imagine just like if you, because this blew my mind when I was a kid. If your car like gets hit by like an asteroid, you're not covered under your insurance because it's considered an act of God. Yeah. And that just blows my mind. Can you imagine like living in Cheltenham or in the middle of nowhere and your car or your roof of your house being totaled by like a little rock? Not like destroying your house or anything, but just like causing enough damage that it costs you a bit of money. And there's just like no help for it because it's just unlucky that you had to be in that place at that time.
Yeah, it'd be pretty annoying. You can't. There's nothing you can do about it. But no one. Yeah, I hate stuff. It's the same with like travel insurance won't pay out on like volcanoes and stuff. It's like because it's a force of God. It's like, well, how can you decide which accidents are you liable for or not? Surely you just meant to cover me.
Yeah, no, totally. I've often thought like what the odds are of like you just being hit in the head with a little asteroid. Like, what are the chances?
I don't. One of those things that like you hear like stats about and you never really believe them or not. It's like maybe I'm thinking of like rocket debris, and like ice and stuff. And they say like I'm sure no one's ever died from like a satellite re-entry, but a dog was once killed or something like.
Well, to be fair as well, like it's only really the last like 50 to 100 years, isn't it? So I reckon it's probably something like once every 100 years somebody gets injured by something falling from space.
Yeah, you could be the first. It's trivia answer for the rest of the time.
Just be the worst thing ever. Just imagine even like just chilling in your own home, just minding your own business, and something just comes through the roof and just like wrecks everything and actually hits you as well. Just be mad. I've now probably just created a fear that probably didn't exist before, but now everyone's going to be terrified of stuff falling from the sky. But first bit of news to take us from not falling from the sky, we're going to be going up into the sky, is the announcement for the Dear Moon project. So I'm going to try not to butcher this name now, but
it's not good.
I don't know if I can say that. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Yusakumezawa?
Yeah, just say it with confidence and you'll be fine.
Yusakumezawa, an online fashion tycoon, is basically created this project called Dear Moon Project, and he's trying to push the envelope and basically take 8 people to the moon and back on a SpaceX Starship, I think. And he first announced this in 2018. I think I remember. Oh no, I don't think he announced it as Project Moon, but I think he announced that he'd booked a spot, didn't he? He'd booked a spot with SpaceX. He's the first private person. But now he's announcing that by 2023, at the earliest, he plans on inviting 6 to 8 artists to join him on a voyage around the moon. Which is pretty awesome. I can't think of anything cooler than going to the moon, if I'm honest with you, and being able to come back. Like, because that's yeah. I'm sure you'll get onto that in a second, but but just like because with Mars and everything, there's that idea that you might not be able to come back. Do you know what I mean? If you're like going out there to like set it up, but this one you get to come back, and like that's so cool because like I don't know about you, but like growing up, if I did want to look at anything spaced, it was usually the moon landings.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be pretty cool to like do it. Obviously not land on the moon and walk around on it, but to even just go to the moon, orbit it, and come back and see the Earth like be a little marble, it would be insane.
Yeah, see sort of the Earth from that side, and to see, obviously it depends on the orbit and stuff. Maybe a sunset over the moon and a sunrise over the moon would be awesome. But I did see actually they reckon with the way the orbit might pan out and what they're planning to do, so just loop around it. It could be the furthest that people have ever gone from Earth, because they're obviously going to do a orbit around the moon and slingshot back, so they're going to be pretty far out from it, I think. So they expect that this will be the furthest that any human's ever gone from Earth, and it could be it could be you.
It would be insane. I've already registered. So anybody that's involved at all in picking people and you're also watching this, please just, it'd be the best thing ever. It's like the one thing I really, really want to do in my one time of existence is to go to space. And the older I get, the more I realize it might not happen, but people will be doing it. I might not be able to go, but loads of people will be able to go.
But yeah, this is going to be on a starship.
Yes.
Which is, as you might alluded to earlier, it's not had a great success of landing so far, has it? So, and 2 years, to 2023 this is meant to happen, and 2 years is not a lot of time to get that.
Well, I was thinking about this with like both of them. Like, you know, the Inspiration 4 one, where they're sending like 4 people up, and then you've got the Dear Moon one. Like, it's all fun and games, but the Inspiration 4 one, you're coming back into Earth in a little capsule and probably crashing in the ocean, which I can imagine is terrifying. And then, but also, I would imagine this one's equally as terrifying because you're going to come back into Earth's orbit and then belly flop and land in a starship. And like, both of those just sound scary.
Yeah, this, like the landing in the ocean thing, I think it would be rough and it would probably hurt quite a bit. But like, I'm not trying to downplay how difficult it is to land to land a rocket, but like in a capsule landing in the ocean with parachutes, it's quite easy, isn't it? It's no problem at all. But like when you watch like the current like Starship landings, when it's like falling and it like belly flops and flips, it looks awful to be on. And like I just trying to think, like, would people be in seats sort of like facing the nose, or would they be sat with like their head to the nose facing the side of it? And like,
I reckon they've probably got like seats on a gyro, so they're always facing the nose, but when it like belly flops, their seat probably like rotates, so they're always in the same position. That's what I'd imagine, because otherwise, yeah, I'd agree with you. It'd be like a roller coaster.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty unpleasant, to be honest, but maybe it's the price you got to pay.
It's pretty mad, really, because like, I don't know if there are like, because you know how we've like barely really touched on this idea of like solar system law, I guess you could say, like nation, like what power does like people on Earth have over space kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And like, you'd think that before we start opening it up and letting people like fly around and do stuff, there would be like some solar system laws. Do you know what I mean? Things you can and can't do, and just basic treaties and stuff, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's mad that like they're gonna just launch 8 people to the moon and back, because like we're just like living in a time where maybe one day, if you're on the run, space could be the answer. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. Like, we're letting people like leave before we've decided what we're gonna do up there.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, if you were crazy and you had a load of money, you could just leave. I don't know how far you'd get, but you could.
Yeah, we're definitely on sort of verge of something incredible, aren't we?
It's just bonkers. It proper blows my mind. It's so cool that like in the last year, it's gone from like seeing space missions and being like, oh, wouldn't that be awesome? And then now it's like, there seems like there's like 2 or 3 competitions where like the average person can now go to.
By next year, it'd be boring. Everyone will have a ticket with
it. Yeah. It'll become the new part of the travel industry to try and save it all going down the pan because of the pandemic. They'll just incorporate space.
Yeah. We'll get you to Australia in 30 minutes. That'd be all good.
It's the new form of travel. You just get in a starship, it flies directly up, lets the Earth spin underneath you, and then it lands. Any country, 30 minutes. Let's go. It'd be insane. But that's the first bit of news. And then the second bit of news isn't really news, but it was kind of interesting, and I just wanted to kind of ask you what your thoughts were on this. But yeah, but I can't read too much about it because New Scientist has a subscription policy, so I can only really read the first paragraph.
Behind the paywall.
Yeah, from behind the paywall. But basically, they're saying that there's been a new warp drive idea created, and it doesn't break the laws of physics. This one, apparently. And yeah, it says it could be the road to reality, and it takes upon old theoretical and hypothetical ideas of requiring exotic forms of matter. But this one, it doesn't need to break any of the laws of physics, and it doesn't require any exotic forms of matter that don't exist, because it only requires ultra dense materials, and apparently we have the ability for those.
Yeah, so in the very last line before it cuts off behind the paywall, it says, a warp drive isn't really an engine, rather it is a bubble of space-time protected by ... So from what I know about these things, I think the basic premise of it is that sort of around very dense things like black holes, space-time gets warped.
Yeah.
And, I'm trying to think back like 4 years to when I studied quantum mechanics and general relativity. Basically, like space-time itself is sort of stretched and squeezed, and what they think they can do is if you... So, as we understand it, you can't travel faster than light.
Yeah.
But if you were able to squeeze space-time in front of you and make it smaller, then you could travel over that and then out the back of you just sort of expand it back again.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'd kind of seen. Like that's like the whole idea of it, isn't it? Like it kind of like it bends it in front of you and expands it behind you.
Yeah. So using these ultra dense materials, basically a black hole, is they reckon they can manipulate space-time so that it sort of squeezes up in front of you and you can just sort of pop across it, and then it just expands it out behind you again. And I'm not going to even pretend I even understand half of this stuff.
I swear, one of the first ever episodes of The Infinite Void, me and you were talking about this, and I had a really wacky... I suggested something really wacky that I'd read, and you were like, yeah, I don't know. I think we were talking about how they would like house the black hole, wouldn't they? Because that's effectively what the warp drive is. and said to you I'd read somewhere that they were gonna like contain it in an electromagnets. But I don't understand. I don't understand how like electric magnets can like contain a black hole, because isn't a black hole like where space-time has like fallen through effectively? It's like something so dense that it's like there. So you wouldn't know it's there because it'd be warping everything. So wouldn't it just warp the magnets, or do the magnets? I'd see.
I don't know. I won't lie. Shout out to my old physics professors. I used to avoid this question on every exam I ever sat, so I really can't comment on it.
That's fair. Underneath the image for this article, it says that the ship would be pancake shaped. That is what's needed for an ideal warp drive, apparently. So, do they mean like a flat pancake, a disc,
or donut pancake,
or a donut pancake?
Donut. Hold on, oh god, I can't even. I get my baked goods mixed up.
Yeah, is it a fat pancake or a thin pancake? Is it like a crepe, or is it like a butterscotch pancake?
It depends whether it's America or Europe building it.
But no, I thought that was kind of cool. I like the ideas of anything that kind of like warps reality. I'm down to clown if somebody comes up with warp drive. I'd be all for watching them give it a go.
Did you have any other news?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much it for me this week.
Okay, so I got 2 bits of news as well. The first one is on James Webb Space Telescope, much awaited. So in February, so we've just gone into March now. Last month they confirmed that they had finished their final functional testing before it launches. So that will be things such as the communication systems being checked, all the scientific instruments working, and the sort of mechanical sort of tests of the system itself, so making sure that it unfolds and can deal with the launch forces and things. So yeah, I mean, it seems good to go.
I'm well excited for this. It's another one that I'm super interested in. I'm excited to see what kind of images they get back for it.
Yeah, but it could be a game changer, to be honest. Hubble's getting on a bit now.
I'm hoping that they don't have any problems with it like they had with Hubble. Do you remember when they had to like realign it and everything? Yeah,
well, without the shuttle now, unless SpaceX go up in a few years' time and fix it. But yeah, I can't remember what date when it's meant to launch now. It's probably some 10 years in the future still, but yeah, it's basically it's looking good to go. They say the final things it needs to do is the final sun shield fold, so folding up ready for launch, and then the the mirror deployment mechanism to check that the mirror can fold as it needs to for the launch and then deploy in space. So yeah, I think it's a pretty big step for them, and looking forward to seeing it eventually launch.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'm just going to check the launch date while it's currently yeah. I should have checked this beforehand.
It was last year, wasn't it?
31st of October 2021 apparently is the current launch date, so maybe end of this year, hopefully we could be seeing it launch, which will be awesome.
By the way, anyone listening, if you're thinking what's going on with these two this week, they seem a bit slow. We've been doing an AI series for like 5 weeks, and it was really weird to like, I don't know about you, mate. I've been like, it was really weird to talk about something that isn't AI today, because I just like got so used to it. It's like part of my weekly thought process now. I was like, what am I going to talk about this week? And it's like, no, we're not doing AI anymore. So apologies to anyone if we sound a little bit sober. That is probably why this week. And I think, yes, it is. It is the poll is done. So our next series is probably going to be on simulation theory, which will be fun. I don't know if we're going to have a 3-parter, 4-parter, 5-parter. We're going to be sorting all that stuff out for probably the next week. But yeah, get ready for that. It'll probably be the first episode next Friday. So that one will be fun. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. I don't know if, and I'm gonna make myself clear right now before we even start it. I am gonna fall neither for or against the simulation theory argument until probably the last episode, because I think there is some interesting stuff either side.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
Have you got any more news?
Yeah, so speaking of devil, it's artificial intelligence.
I was going to say the end of the world didn't happen last week from artificial intelligence.
No,
we were lucky because we thought something bad might happen after we talked about it.
Yeah, as far as we know, that those episodes aren't yet redundant, so we're still here. But yeah, this is a bit on the BBC. They did a little article about it, about this thing called the litter cam, which is basically a CCTV camera with artificial intelligence built into it that's able to determine if you're littering from your car and then capture pictures of you and your car number plate and give you an automatic fine.
Nice.
What's your first impressions of this?
I don't know, because part of me is like, yeah, people littering should be fined. But has it had any problems? Because I can imagine that people might be getting fined without littering, or like having your window open, and if your scarf or something sticking out, flapping, or your coat or your seatbelt. Not that you would be driving without your seatbelt on, but you know what I mean. Any of those kind of things, you might trigger it. But I kind of agree. I kind of agree with it. I mean, you probably should be fined if you're throwing rubbish outside your car.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. Don't litter, people. It's a rubbish thing to do.
It is a rubbish thing to do.
But yeah, immediately I'm just thinking of the automated fines and artificial intelligence is a lot like China.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you get fined for running a red light, and there's nothing you can do. It just gets took.
I always feel a bit uneasy about this stuff, and it goes back to like all the artificial intelligence stuff that we were talking about in our series, about sort of what role it plays as stuff. But yes, it's interesting technology. I just hope they think about how they're going to apply it before they actually do.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds cool. I'm all for like trying to cut down on litter and stuff. I don't know about you. Even in like lockdown for me this year, I've got so into my like recycling. When I'm buying stuff now, like what I can recycle and what isn't, and I try and cut it out if I can't, and stuff like that. So if there's an AI trying to solve like litter on motorways and stuff, because that's such a bad problem. I remember seeing. Oh, gone.
Around where I live is not sort of near me, but if I walk out into the countryside a bit, there's a motorway, and there's like a few bridges. If you do a little loop around the country lanes, you go under and across some of these motorways, and like every single like bridge embankment and bit of lit road and sort of area next to the motorway is just covered with stuff, like ankle deep in bottles and crisp packets and stuff. It's just
it's grim. It's grim. When I was at uni, like there was this like giant bush, kind of like hedge next to this road where we lived, and they like pulled it up because they were like redoing some of the roads, and there was so much rubbish underneath it. Like you just couldn't see the floor, and it was like, oh man, and it's all plastic as well.
Yeah, it's grim.
It is grim. I hate seeing those videos on like social media where it's like those piles of rubbish that go above like the Statue of Liberty, and it's like, this is how much rubbish a human will create in their lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like times that by 7 billion, and it's surprising that we can even stand on the ground still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm sure that'll be a series in the future as well, because that was a close second, the climate crisis and ways that we can not ruin the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep.
that'll be a fun one to do in the future. But have you got any more news, or is that...
No, that's me done. That's all I have.
All right, then. Well, I think we'll call it there for this episode. So, yeah, anybody listening, hope you've enjoyed it. Sorry if it's a little bit of a shorter one. We're back and we're not used to being able to do whatever we want for an episode again. It's quite fun. But we'll probably start next week, the next series. And if we don't, we'll have a guest on. But that's dependent on if plans plan out the way that we want them to. We've also got some other cool stuff coming up in the coming weeks and months, and I'm sure as soon as we're able to tell you, we will, but they're still being worked on at the moment. But yeah, so if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you give it a like if you're watching on YouTube, and comment below what your thoughts were, because we'd love to get more involved with what you guys have got to say. If you downloaded this or you're listening to this and you've done it through Apple Podcasts, go and give us a nice review, because that helps us with charting. And shout out to everyone in the country of Norway that listens to us, because we keep getting notifications through saying that we're charting in Norway. So thanks everyone, that's awesome, and we really appreciate the support. And if you want to hit us up on social media, it's the Infinite Void Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to hit me or Matty up, I'm Jacob E. Carson, and Matty is the Matty JMP. And yeah, we will catch you in the Infinite Void next week. Hey everyone, we wanted to take a moment to tell you about our brand new Patreon page.
Yeah, so we've devised a load of new goodies that are neatly packaged across 3 different tiers for you.
Tiers start at £3 and go all the way up to £10 a month.
Just to say, the Patreon is in no way an obligation, and we're going to continue making the podcast as it is, freely available across all the platforms. But if you'd like to support us and show your support, you can now.
So yeah, head over to patreon.com/Infinite Void Pod for more information.